Hello friends, welcome back to DIY guitar making. If you like what I do here and you get a little something out of the lessons that I teach, please do me a favor, check out ericschaferguitars.com for my online courses and for dates for my scheduled hands-on guitar build workshops here in Burnville, Pennsylvania. So I am extremely excited to be back in the shop today, simply because I have been sort of overloaded as of late with a lot of projects and things that I just needed to get done that really had nothing to do with what I love to do, which is actually making guitars. And so guitar number 116, this all maple Florentine cutaway parlor guitar that I'm working on, has been on the back burner, but now I have kind of a long runway of time to actually dedicate to just doing this, and of course making and editing the videos about it for you guys at home. So why don't we jump right into it? So you guys may have seen the recent video I put out where I made this mold for my Florentine cutaway. And so most of the jig making stage is now complete. There's a couple little fixtures I have to make pertaining to shaping and conforming and gluing the tip block and the neck block that is particular to a Florentine cutaway. By the way, in the future, I'm not working on this currently, but maybe later in the year, I will be coming out with a Florentine cutaway course. So if you guys are interested in that, well, hey, you can send me an email and I can explain how to pre-order it. But for now, it's not ready to go yet. So yeah, you can also just wait until the release date of that Florentine cutaway course. So anyway, what are we doing? A lot of things, actually. I'm never particularly sure exactly which direction I'm going to go on a given day, but one thing I can say for sure is we are going to start out by cutting out the Florentine cutaway shape, essentially, you know, profiling the top and the back, and then we're going to thickness. This back plate is already, just because of where I got it from, is already scary thin. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I was very careful book matching this to not leave any kind of little ledge here that I'd have to sand away, because I just don't have that forgiveness right now built into it. I mean, this looks like it's under 1/10 of an inch. You know, less than 100 thousandths of an inch. Yeah, it is. It's 90 thousandths of an inch. This is thickness like a side right now, which is a little thinner than I personally like to go. But, you know, I'm willing to experiment with a back like this, and I want to use this piece, so we're going to go ahead and use it. Again, I just have to be very careful sanding anything back on this, including when we have to sand the binding back. I just don't want to over sand at this point. The redwood top, on the other hand, is plenty thick right now, so I'm not going to have any sort of consideration like that for the top. This will be fine. All right, let's do it. Nothing to it but to do it. So we'll start by defining our show face. So I'm literally just going to flip it over, and it's subjective, of course, and sometimes there's no difference at all. But this I'm going to consider the show face. There we go. Nothing ambiguous about that. Just write the word show on there. Now this looks worse because it's rough, but if you look at it closely, I can see I'm just looking for symmetry with the grain lines. And this side, and if I look right at the book match, that's where you can see you'll notice on one side the symmetry slightly off, and on the other side it's just dead nuts on. So that's going to be this side right here, the clean looking side. So again, just write show so I don't confuse myself. And now, because this is a Florentine cutaway, I have to be mindful which way I put the template on here and trace it out. Okay, that looks great. Make a nice dark line so it's not ambiguous where I'm supposed to cut. The chalk line, of course, is just from the place I purchased it from. When you buy from a supplier, or even if you order online, there's often an outline drawn on there, and that's just simply to show you that defects like this, like these two holes here, that they're outside of the footprint of where your guitar should be. So now, since this is the show face, I actually want to flip the mold around so the cutaway is on this side, because this will be the back. Now I'm just going to move it around till it looks good laterally. And it's pretty arbitrary here. There's no knots or anything that I want to avoid. So I'll just kind of put it right in the middle. Okay, and that pencil's really easy to see on the maple. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to with working with maple. You know, I've dealt with rosewood and walnut and ebony so much, where marking on them, especially with a pencil, is really hard. This is kind of nice. And now we are at my small 10-inch bandsaw. I have a bigger bandsaw in the back, which I keep a large blade on for resawing and cutting big parts. I'm just mentioning this because this is one of those nice little tips for you guys who are outfitting your shop. Having two bandsaws has been immensely useful, because this one I just always keep a 1/4-inch blade on. I don't have to spend the time swapping out the blade for other things. And the other bandsaw always has a 3/4-inch blade for, you know, tracking straight and making big cuts. But yeah, 1/4-inch blade is all I need for profiling these tops and backs. And it's a good idea to have the guard, or not the guard, the guide bearings as low as they can go. So they're sitting just a little bit higher than the top, and that just helps stabilize the blade. So what I'm going to do first is at the waist and at this cut, I'm going to go straight in and then back out just to relieve that area, because it's kind of a sharp turn, so that when I then follow the outline, the blade isn't going to twist or get bound up trying to make this steep turn at the waist or even steeper turn at the cutout. So the trick to cutting curves with a bandsaw is to simply always keep the blade moving, or more accurately, keep the workpiece moving as you're asking it to accept that curve. Okay? If you rather kind of stop, which I think when people are nervous or new to bandsaws, they tend to push it forward a little bit and then stop and try to turn in place. You got to keep moving forward while you're turning. Think a fluid motion, right? Not a sharp, angular cutting action, if that makes sense. Or turning action, I mean. Okay, let's do the back. Alright, so after cutting this out on the bandsaw, I took this over to the drum sander, and I took it down most of the way to where I want it. It's starting to get a nice tap tone to it. I stopped a little bit early though, because I want to put the rosette in first. I just feel a little bit more comfortable having that extra thickness to work with, and then I can level the rosette on the drum sander, and then also thickness it a little bit further at that point from the back side, so that I don't run the risk of sanding through my rosette by leveling off of the top side. Anyway, that's why I kind of get this close and we take a break from it. Onto the back, like I said, we're already hyper thin. We're where we need to be for sure. So I'm just gonna sand the inside surface smooth right now with this random orbital sander, so that we have good adhesion when we glue the back braces down. Very simple right here. I just put this right down on the wood of the table. I don't use a carpet or anything like that because I don't want it to be flexible and kind of smush down. I want this to be, to remain flat. And I don't need anything to butt it up against or any clamps to hold it down. I can just hold it with my hand and just kind of move my hand around. See, even if I let go, it just kind of swims around. That's fine. One thing I'm noticing here as I'm sanding is that there's a little micro ledge here. You can't even see it. In fact, the only way to show it to you would be if I kind of marked that up and then took a block and sanded it. So there, the pencil that remains is down in that little gully. There's another one on this side too. And so rather than just sanding endlessly until I'm down to that, which the sanding is going to, the pad of the paper is going to rest on a very large and broad area, and it'll have to sand down that large broad area down to the lowest spot, and that's going to take forever, plus it's going to thin this out more than we want. So a little bit of selective scraping, or you could do selective sanding if you don't want to use a scraper. But some, selective work here is called for. The scraper just goes way quicker than sandpaper would. So I'm kind of easing in that side, and now it feels like it's just right there. Okay, now we're there. So now, if you look at these pencil marks, well, you get the idea. Sometimes the pencil marks are a little down in there into the structure of the wood and whatnot, but it's taking pencil off of both sides now. And I got a little bit of a lip on the other side too. Same deal. I just got to plane it selectively a little bit, or scrape it selectively, I mean, and then I'll finish up with this again. All right, let's go grab some bracewood blanks because we are ready to shape and rough out our brace blanks and get them installed onto the back plate. It's pretty dark over here. I actually just found this thing at an antique shop, and figured I'd load it up with wood, kind of clean up the mess and the chaos and the disorganization that I have back here with my molds and excess soundboards and backs and tops and things like that. Okay, but hey, we can't see well enough over here to go through what I want to go through as far as the brace blanks, so I'm going to carry this back over to the bench and we'll talk over there. Alright, so these are what bracewood billets look like. Typically when you buy them from StewMac or some other supplier, they come in rectangles about this size, because the aim of the supplier is to get a piece that is big enough to cut your blanks from, but still has relatively quarter sawn grain. So if you look at the end grain here, so these crosswise marks are from milling. That's from a table saw most likely. But I can see the grain looks something like that. If I cleaned up those marks, you'd be able to see it better. So that is not perfectly quarter sawn, but in a lot of cases, this is what you should expect to get. It's never, not, I shouldn't say never. You can definitely get perfectly quarter sawn individual pieces, but they're getting harder and harder to get, which is actually why I have a variety of species here. I'm sort of species agnostic within the realm of certain softwoods that luthiers like to use for brace wood. Meaning I'm not going to use something ridiculous for brace wood like ebony, but I will use Western red cedar, which is what you see here. I will use Sitka spruce, I will use Carpathian spruce, I will use Engelmann spruce, Adirondack spruce. It's all good in my estimation, and I don't even mind mixing different species on the same bracing pattern, because really what I'm looking for is not species specific, but I'm just looking within that variety of species. I'm looking for the best examples of tight grain and quarter sawn orientation. Okay, so I have a variety here, and if I really want to produce an excellent guitar, I will look through it and find the grain that stands straight up. Here, this one's pretty good. I'm not sure if you can see that, and if you can't, I will draw it for you. There, it's pretty much straight up and down. That's really good, and it's tight. Those are pretty tight grain lines. So I like this piece. That other one we saw didn't look as good, right? Now I can look at the Western red cedar too. I love cedar. This comparatively looks very poor. You see that? This is rift sawn. It's almost at a 45-degree angle across. This is pretty straight up and down. It's pretty quarter sawn. See? And the grain lines are very tight, especially on this side. So all of this is stuff to consider, and you don't have to get too nitty-gritty with it, but you want to be you want to pay attention at least somewhat to grain orientation and the tightness of the grain lines. That's going to equal a better strength to weight ratio, which means in the end a lighter top, and lighter means a more resonant top. Okay, so I've got my soundboard template and my back bracing template, and so I can lay both of these out and use them to organize my cut list based on the width of the various braces and the length of the various braces. Oh, and also the starting heights that I like to use for these braces. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that. Once I have my cut list ready, I'm taking a couple of these over to the bandsaw and I can start to split them off. One last little detail that I think might be interesting to you is that I like to pick through the individual blanks that I create and save the best two pieces for the X-brace arms, because that is where your tonal bang for your buck is going to be the greatest. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so we've got the brace blanks cut, and let's deal with the back braces first. I have dealt with explaining this wonky looking bracing pattern in the past, and I'm not going to get into it here. If you're interested, you can look back at those older videos. Maybe I'll explain it later on in the process. But I want to stick to execution right now. And what we're doing next is radiusing the mating surface of the brace, because the way that we get our radius, I'm sorry, my rooster is going nuts outside right now. The way that but you guys are used to that by now if you watch my videos. The way that we get the plate to the radius that we want is by radiusing the mating surface of the brace blanks, and then when we glue the brace blanks down to that thin, flexible material, Like I said before, I mean, this is only 90 thousandths of an inch, which is very thin. So it's very pliable, and it's going to get pulled into whatever radius we put into the glue surface. So this is going to be a 12-foot radius for the back. And I have this little tool here so I can mark my radius. But you can just go straight to the dish and sand. When it's a big radius, like a 12-foot radius is, I like to pre-carve the ends out a little bit first to save me some time. And so that's why I'm marking this out right now. Okay, see that? Let's see how this is set up. Pretty good. I might adjust it a little bit. Let that blade stick out a little bit more for a coarser cut. That's better. So there we are, roughed in close to the line. Take my pencil and just throw a bunch of marks onto the bottom surface, and then I'll sand. And once all those marks are gone, I know I've got that 12-foot radius onto the mating surface of my brace. The real key here, key thing to keep in mind, is not to press down hard when you're sanding. Guys, it's never good really to put lots of down pressure when you're sanding, but even more so in this case because this material is so thin and flexible that I can simply push it down into the concave dish, and then if you're sanding, yeah, your marks on the bottom will go away really quickly, but you won't actually be there because you just flexed it down to the shape. So your brace blank will effectively still be flat, but you'll think you have a 12-foot radius. So you want to just have light to no down pressure. I'm just kind of grazing across the surface of the dish. Okay, all my pencil marks are gone, so I am at that 12-foot radius. I can double check it with my contour gauge. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I'm gonna go ahead and do these other two braces for the back. Later on, I'll do the top braces as well. I'm gonna get these glued down, and you know what? We'll cover more in the next video. So we'll leave it off right here. I hope you guys got something out of this. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.